Welcome to the People and Performance Podcast, featuring guest experts from such global brands as NASA, Salesforce, the Milwaukee Bucks, Staples Professional, IBM, Mutual of America, Xero, and Simon Sinek Inc. The show offers expert insights into the strategic capabilities and behaviors needed to grow and sustain employee performance.
In this episode of the People and Performance Podcast, we discuss how to create positive change in your work, life, and community. Listen to as we shine the light on the role of solution-focused thinking. Our guest this time is Gregg Brown. He is a global speaker and advisor. Gregg engages leaders all over the world to build the courage to dive into the never-ending waves of change. These audiences range from Fortune 500 companies such as Johnson & Johnson, UN, Habitat for Humanity, and the CDC. We hope you enjoyed this conversation we had with Gregg, and if you do, please support the pod by liking, commenting, and hitting subscribe. Welcome, Gregg. Can you introduce yourself today? Tell us what makes you who you are.
What makes me who I am today is quite complex, I think. I think it's all of us on the planet having gone through the last 3 years and coming out the other end. And, the other piece around that is what really drives me is how can I make people's work lives better? Because we spend most of our time at work. And that's why I love doing these types of podcasts, because we're all in this to help people get tips, techniques, insights to make their days better.
Thank you, Gregg. Gregg, you and I have been lucky enough to have a couple of conversations before on the HR Chat Pod, and it's lovely to have you on the People and Performance Podcast today with Chris and I. I've got a lot of respect for what you say, how you say it, how you deliver it, and what you write. And in fact, you recently wrote a blog post, which I thought was pretty cool, and it was on how to create positive change in your work, your personal life, and community. Can you tell our listeners a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, just like I said a minute ago, that as we're coming out of what we've been in the last few years, this big crises, crises are where people find their greatness. And why is that? Because we are pushed in ways that we have not been pushed before. And all of us have experienced that and have developed what I would say, a whole new set of muscles to handle the changes and all of the pieces that are coming down the pipe. And what we know with the future of work and its impact on performance, there's three main factors driving this. One is the increase in automation and artificial intelligence, which we're seeing. The second, of course, is that changing economic landscape, and I'll give examples of each of these. And then the third, of course, is shifting societal expectations. And I think as we've come out of this crisis, we're all being called to try to figure out, what is this future going to be? What is the impact on my organization? What is the impact on my people that I'm working with? And with the advancements in technology, one of the pieces that we're seeing, and this is coming from research such as the World Economic Forum's 2023 job report, that's saying, because of this automation, we're seeing a need for people that know how to rapidly lead change, a need for people that have flexibility, who have analytical thinking, who have critical thinking, because machines can't do that. With the changing economic landscape, everyone's experiencing this hybrid work environment conversation. How do we balance the needs of the employer? How do we balance the needs of the individual? Of course, last but not least, the whole shifting societal expectations that's driving the future of work, which is the increasing DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion conversations that are on top of every organization's agenda. And I believe those are really the factors driving our future of work.
Gregg, in a recent LinkedIn post, you write, "In business, problems are inevitable. Successful organizations distinguish themselves by focusing on solutions." What does solution-focused thinking do for us, you say? So, Gregg, our question for you is, what does solution-focused thinking do for us in the context of improving the performance of employees?
I think too often as leaders, and I include myself in this, we want to solve everyone's problems for them. And I think when we use solution-focused thinking, and I'll give you 4 short examples that our listeners can apply, we want to build the individual's capability to handle things on their own going forward, because it's less impact on us, and we build their skill and capability. So let me give you 4 quick examples of that. One, you could explore the ending of the problem with someone and say something like, How did you manage to stop that? And that's exploring the endings is a great solution-focused technique. The other one's to explore exceptions to the problem. If someone's frequently late at work, you're not always late. Tell me about what's going on the days you're on time, because we're building those skills. You might explore previous solutions. I don't know how to do this. How are you able to complete that last time? How are you able to complete that report last week? And last but not least, one I like to do that really helps build capability is amplifying the change you want in the person's performance and saying, if you keep doing this, what difference do you think it'll make in your work? And you see, all those 4 questions really drive home the ownership for the person you're having that conversation with. And it will build their skill, will build their capability, and it will improve their performance.
The People and Performance Podcast, supported by Fidello Inc., is dedicated to offering tips and expert insights into the strategic capabilities and behaviors needed to establish, grow, and measure the performance of employees. If you enjoy the show, why not subscribe and give us 5 stars through your favorite podcast app?
So my question for you is this: can you share some of your tips that you've helped to, and that have helped you when there's so much going on? What are some of your go-to tips for tackling a busy schedule so you or anyone else can focus on what's going to push the needle forward?
Yeah, I think my number one tip these days, because people are talking frequently about being overwhelmed at work, it's a common conversation. The number one tip I have for that is through relentless, and I use that term specifically, relentless prioritization. Every time something comes in, you relentlessly prioritize it. And you have to figure out what your prioritization is going to be and how to do it. Is it based on who's asking you? Is it based on the return on the amount of time? Is it based on what you can get out the door? Is it something that needs to be a quick win? But you relentlessly have to prioritize that. And what people tend not to do, which I encourage them to do, is actually block the time in your calendar to do the work. Sitting in meetings 8 hours a day does not give you time to do the work. And if you have control over that, block that time in there.
I love that. I've seen too many managers that I've worked with over the year that it's a 1 hour time commitment, and it's a PowerPoint. And that's all that it goes from. And you go from one to the next to the next. Where's the PowerPoint for that? And you lose a little bit of that focus. Committing that time is critical. So that's a brilliant piece there. So congratulations, you got a new book coming out. Switching topics here. It's called Spark Action. Can you tell us some more about it?
Yeah, Spark Action is all about how do we lead change that matters. And it comes from years of working with leaders and certainly being a leader myself and feeling the pressure and hearing from others when changes come down the pipe at work. I need to convince people to do this. I need to get them on board my idea. And I've realized that doesn't work. And, one of the pieces I talk about when I'm on stage and doing workshops or speaking is, take the pressure off. We can't make people do anything. It's a fake idea that we can make people do anything. So my book really takes a holistic approach and looks at ways that we can help people take action in the context of what's going on in the future of work and the way our world is today. So it includes everything from, getting a PhD in yourself, knowing who you are, what works, what ticks you off, some myths and challenges around change. And then, of course, what can we do to actually get people to take action on my ideas? And, sometimes people have said, oh, it's really a book on communications. I'm like, nah, it's the last thing it's about. Communications, this is about taking action. People communicate all the time and share information. That's not taking action.
Cool. Hey, on a follow-up to that, it sounds like, when we've done some other pieces and looked at things, you kind of lay out a roadmap for people to engage others so they can take action. So what are some, can you throw me out 3 key things that you can suggest to people to improve their ability to get others to take the action quickly, given all the competing pressures that are going on in their lives too?
Absolutely. First thing I always say is, before you start a conversation to try to engage others or even write an email or whatever way you want to communicate with the individuals, is remembering that the buy-in, the agreement, the change happens in the mind of the other person. So you always start with them and ask, what do they need to be? What do they need to know? What do they need to have to say yes? That's the starting point of everything. Yes, you have your mandate. They have theirs as well. So get into their head first and figure that out. Secondly, when people bring up ideas that you might disagree with or think are silly, don't shut them down. Look for disruptive ideas, and ask the question, what's good about this idea? Because no one brings ideas to meetings that are fully formed. And if you shut down my idea, I'm less likely to take action on your idea. So one of the things we know is, no one brings ideas to meetings that are fully formed, and ideas need to collide for innovation to occur. You need that collision. And thirdly, to help people take action, everybody gets worried about what's going to happen. And, I remind people that worries are just made up negative stories. And we want to listen to worries because, of course, there's mental health issues and all that going on. And if we want people to take action, let's ground them in risks and turn it into a risk management conversation and start asking questions about, what can we try to do to prevent this from happening? If it does happen, what will we do? And I think by asking those questions, it grounds it in fact, and we get away from the sky is falling conversation and move into, let's take some action on this.
Thank you, Greg. Greg, the next two questions we've got for you are questions that we ask of all of our guests. Okay, so don't be afraid to repeat some things that you've already mentioned today if it helps support your answers. The first one, Chris and I like to challenge our our guests to answer in 1 minute or less. Here we go. Greg, in 1 minute or less, can you share one piece of advice or some direction that you were given by a mentor, a leader, or a colleague that inspired you to perform at a higher level in your career?
Absolutely. And this is in my book. Remove the word should from your vocabulary. Just get rid of the word should from your vocabulary. You should do this. You should do that. It makes people feel bad, wrong, silly, and like you're being a parent. Replace the word should and turn it into a third person. Next time I suggest you do this. Next time you could do it this way. If I were to do that next time, I might try it this way. This gets rid of the whole should. I did what I did. What do you want me to do going forwards? It's a form of solution-focused thinking as well. So I talk a lot about that in Spark Action.
Okay, Chris, I should definitely give that some more thought in my career too. And
no comment, by the way, Bill. And for our listeners, the best thing of that whole little that spiel that Greg just went on is when he was saying should, he was wagging his finger at our faces. So you should. He was doing that condescension moment. You should. So I love that. But anyway, so fun on this.
Get rid of it out of your vocabulary. Yeah. Remove that word. You don't need it at work.
Just is another one that really annoys me.
Oh, and but.
My other half says, can you just go and take out the garbage, please? Just do that. Anyway, next question for you.
Remove the word but. Remove the word but. You're really good at this, but you're really good at this, and you need to improve on this. When we're talking performance, it weighs things evenly.
The famous Ned Stark of Game of Thrones fame. He famously said everything before the word but is BS. There we go. Okay, so next question for you, and feel free to take longer to answer. From a culture and people processes perspective, Greg, what does a high-performing company mean to you?
Well, one of the things I've really learned, and certainly what the research shows, is that, leadership resides in the teams of the leaders, not with the individual leaders. And it always happens when teams are in alignment with organizational goals. And we know this, any team, high-performing leadership teams always outperform the individual. So for me, a high-performing company means they've got a leadership team that isn't working in silos, that is functioning together, that knows how to do rapid exploration, that has excellent interpersonal skills, and can quickly do rapid decision making if required, because the future of work is not slowing down. Things are just going to speed up.
So here we go. The last question for you. And as Bill said, he had the two that we ask everybody, but we ask everybody this one too. How can we learn more about you? And also, how can we get a copy of your new book, Spark Action?
Great. Well, you can go to sparkactionbook.com, and that'll take you to the page on our website. And you can buy it pre-order it from any of the retailers. I encourage you to also shop local. We have a button that you can figure out where your local independent book provider is. You'll be able to get a pre-order in digital, audio, and soft copy or hard copy that would be sent to you. You also get some goodies from me if you do a pre-order. So go to bechangeready.com and you get a bunch of good free stuff if you do a pre-order there. And I hope to hear from people. So bechangeready.com or sparkactionbook.com.
Gregg Brown, thank you very much. Chris and I have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Val.
Thank you for listening to the People and Performance Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.